writing from your body uses that technique to understand your characters better, because your characters also, as they become more and more real, they're carrying their life experiences in their bodies as well. And they may not be conscious of it. They may be totally unaware of it. They just may feel they're holding their shoulders tight. Or they may not even notice that, but just feel the pain in their shoulders, or and not know why their shoulders hurting them, but they've been clenching it for 20 years because of something that happened to them 20 years ago or something.
Hello, writers and crafters. I'm Valerie Isan.
And I'm Erick Mertz.
And this is episode 144 of the podcast, and it's January 24th, 2024 as we record this. Today, our main topic is going to be writing from your body with guest Anna Willman. She's going to take us through some exercises. We want to thank our existing patrons for believing in our work offline and here on the podcast. You can become a patron of the arts at patreon.com/Valerie Isan, IHSAN, for books, writing instruction, coaching, and planning. And you can go to patreon.com/Strange Eyre Stories for short stories in the paranormal mystery genre. Announcements. So the registration for the 2024 Writer Craft Writing Retreat and Workshop in Marcola, Oregon is live right now, but I wanted to make sure everyone knew that the monthly payment option ends at the end of this month. So you just have a couple more, a few more days, a week or so, if you want to utilize a monthly payment option for this writing retreat in the summer. And there's only 4 private tickets left, and there's 3 shared tickets. So you can go to valerieisan.com/retreat for more information. Any announcements on your end, Erick?
Nope, nothing special. Just the same old over here.
Same old, same old. All right.
There will be. I'll have some announcements. I feel like I'll have something.
Some are coming.
Yeah, something's coming.
And then
but
it's announcements.
Right now. Yeah.
What have you been doing? What's your author update? What's up?
Well, trying not to break my bones on the ice, as probably anybody who's listening to this knows. Yeah, I made a lot of good out of that snow time and ice time, but it was precarious. I don't get cabin fever very easily, but I had it by the end of that. So yeah, I'm working through. I've got a manuscript that I've been working on. It's a novella in the Strange Eyre series that should be, I don't know, it's in draft 2 right now and probably going out to some early readers by the end of the month.
Okay.
So that's been fun. Yeah, and still developing the new series. I've got almost an entire one of those little black and white composition notebooks full of yeah. It's going to be good. I've never plotted anything this long from beginning to end.
Oh, wow.
And yeah, so like I've really got it. I'm getting it figured out. I don't want to say I've got it figured out, but I'm getting there. And it's going to be interesting to go at writing something where I know everything from beginning to end. Whereas, I have a map, but I'm also figuring out how to get there with the Strange Eyre. So I'm excited. I brought a lot of excitement out of the ice and snow. So.
Oh, good. That's exciting.
What about you?
The ice and snow didn't work well for me. I mean, I got a little flustered just because I'm heavily routined. I guess I really enjoy having my routine, and when it gets thrown off, I usually can recover within a couple of hours. Like if my schedule I don't immediately go into a funk, but I'm like, what? Wait. Okay. Like reassess and try to come up with like a new plan. And like every parent knows how to do that, like your kid is sick and all of a sudden your whole day has to change or whatever. Right. So I am practiced at that. And I think I do a fairly decent job at it, but for some reason I just could not get out of my little funk. And I kept trying to I spent a lot of time journaling and meditating actually because I lost the internet, which is why, listeners, we did not have a podcast episode last week because I didn't have any internet. So we couldn't do the recording even. So Yeah, because I thought about that too. I'm like, well, maybe we can just go ahead and do it and then I'll upload it later. But Zoom, like I have to.
Right. Yeah.
I didn't have any internet. So anyway, yeah. I have been doing meditation a lot. I started doing it about a month ago, and that I'm really, really digging. I've had some experience with meditating, through the years, but this is a new app that I downloaded. It's called Balance. And it's free for the first year because the company's mission is that everyone should have access to learning how to do this, because it's so good for you. It's so healthy and, reduces stress and helps you sleep and blah, 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 all those things we know about meditation. And so they just wanted to make it available. So for the first year, the app is free. After that, I think it's $70 a year.
Is there an affiliate link in the
No,
free? Oh, this is
this
sweet.
is just me. Like, I dig
We're
it.
not getting paid for
We're
this,
not
folks.
getting
This
paid for
is
this. I can put I'll put the details in the show notes so people can
well, that's
like look
great.
it up themselves. But I'm really, really digging it. And it's really
I'm
helping
glad.
my stress levels and stuff. So, and
On a
bringing
side note, I read about David Lynch, who's a hero of mine. We all probably know that
hmm
at this point, but he's really big in the transcendental meditation world, and
hmm
he has initiatives that brings transcendental meditation to the homeless in Los Angeles.
hmm
He's like building this like kind of destigmatizing meditation, and kind of making it, opening it up for everybody. So I just love it when these sort of walls we have around things get torn down, right? Like more
hmm
I think the world would be better with more meditation. So
Yeah, that's kind of, I
right.
think, the vibe from both David Lynch and this Balance app anyways. And I don't know anything about transcendental meditation. This Balance app is just like body awareness and
Right.
um yeah, and just helping you focus on things when your
Right.
mind kind of wanders. And so,
Maybe I should download that. If anybody
yeah.
sees me go like this, it's maybe me downloading that app, because I need that.
um, I am also updating my website slowly, my author services website. So when you go on, you might see some new colors or some new photos. Every week I add something and change something around, and trying to get it to be a little bit more streamlined and more obvious about the services that I provide. And I'm also developing 12-week coaching programs. So Aligned Author will be like a 12-week coaching program that takes you through. Yeah, so I'm in the middle of like developing that and getting them up on my website. So that's what I'm working on author wise. I'm also going to I got a couple emails from the conferences that I spoke at last year
Oh,
asking
oh
me
yeah.
to, resubmit. So I'm trying to think of like, what can I talk about? Because last year I felt like I talked about my mainstay things, and now I feel like, what else could I say? I mean, obviously I have a lot to say. We have a podcast. We talk about stuff all the time. But
Right.
I got to find something that's going to be my new thing for this year. And pitch.
It's funny you bring that up, because I went out and pitched a bunch of conferences in January, and it's funny because one of the conferences said, "Oh, I see that you're a ghostwriter, but you didn't pitch anything about ghostwriting. Have you thought about doing a class about that?" And I know that's a really small thing, but I just, it reminded me that sometimes you don't see the forest for the trees, right? You don't, I do something that I kind of take it for granted. But to some people may want to know what I do, and it's hard for me to see that. So I don't know.
That's true.
I,
Thanks for saying that. Maybe I can do like an accountability for authors or something, because I've taught that class before a couple years ago
right.
on a conference, but maybe I can
Yeah.
do something like that.
Or you can break down your big macro 1.5 hour thing into two, I don't know. I guess I lose sight of how much I don't know, this isn't one of those pats on the back, but like I lose sight of how much I know, and what actually from that other people might want to know. And
hmm
I think I need a little time to step back and say, well, like, what could I teach? There's probably a lot more than I know, than I think
Yeah.
of, at least. Yeah.
So that's what's happening for me on my end.
That's great though. They're asking you to come back. That's bravo.
Yay, thank you. Okay, what are you reading?
Well, I just finished A Prayer for the Crown Shy by Becky Chambers, as suggested by you, which was a
Was
lot
it
of
palate
fun.
cleanser? Was it the palate cleanser you needed?
Look, it was my birthday over the weekend. I went to the
Happy
beach.
birthday. How did I not
Thank
know
you.
that?
I keep it hidden. I really hide it from everybody.
How old are you?
I'm 48.
48. Happy birthday.
Thank you. I brought it to the beach. It was a rainy, stormy day at the beach on Sunday, and it was just the perfect book to sort of sit with a beach view and read, and it was really enchanting.
Have you read it, Anna?
No.
It's really good. I like
I'll
it.
say that I have this sort of, I thought I had a problem with the sort of trope in sci-fi where the sort of naive creature comes to a new place, and then the person that's from that place, kind of acts as a tour guide, but then that new naive character teaches them something about their world. You know that trope, the sort of wise outsider. I thought I didn't like that trope, but this book really, I don't know, it just plays on that trope in a way that I could live with and enjoy.
Yeah.
I thought that Moscap had a lot of interesting things to say that weren't, hitting me over the head. So
Yeah, I think that what I liked about it was just the exploration of humanity as
right,
seen through a non-human.
right.
It's a
And that can feel
useful,
clunky.
What,
it,
Anna?
it's a useful way of getting you to step back and get a different perspective on everything.
Yes.
Right.
That it's a tool that works sometimes pretty well.
Very cool. Did you
What about
finish,
you?
Erick, reading The Wild and Eerie and Children of Ruin?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I finished Ma and Me, that memoir about the Cambodian refugee that lived in
Oh,
Corvallis, Oregon. So I finished that. And I am in the midst of Praying with Jane Eyre by Vanessa Zoltan. There we go. And I just received yesterday from my bookstore an order from it's The Creative Act by Rick Rubin.
oh yeah.
Have you read that?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because I must have gotten the vibe from you. I must have gotten the recommendation from you or something. I just kept hearing about it, and it's still, I mean, it came out this last year and it's still in hardcover. So I got it, but yeah, I think that might be my airplane. Oh, that's another update thing. I'm going to be going to Turkey on the 31st for 2 weeks to go and visit family, Ali's family. So I wanted to read that on the plane.
Well, let me put a plug in. I've read it physical and I've listened to the audiobook.
Mm-hmm.
So I've read it twice. Rick Rubin has one of the most just intoxicating voices you'll ever hear in your life.
Okay.
He is he's like got this guru quality. He's the kind of person that if he was talking on one end of a crowded room, you would be drawn to him. So I think for me, like the book is inseparable from his voice because there's a lot of real poignant bits in there.
Mm-hmm.
That yeah, it would just work for me. I don't love audiobooks. I don't, but I loved
But
that
this
one
one
so
worked.
much.
Okay,
Oh
cool.
yeah.
Interesting. When do you listen to your audiobooks?
When I'm making dinner, when I'm at the gym, walking the dog, but I'm a podcast person. So
Yeah.
I do most of my research about, writing research and, keep up on sports and movies
Mm-hmm.
and
Yeah.
things through podcasts. So
I listen to a lot of podcasts and I have a lot of audiobooks to listen to. I just like, when do you listen to that instead of the podcast? And if I listen to an audiobook, then I'll be falling behind on the podcasts. And
right. And you're a completist. We know this about you. You like to,
yeah. I am practicing marking as played.
oh, you got to do that.
Even if it's something, yeah. Oh, that's hard to do. That's like reading an article in the middle of a magazine instead of at the beginning for me.
Ooh, I do that with poetry magazine where I'll read one in the middle and
I
dare myself to
know.
remember it.
I just can't imagine how to do that. I mean, I even like read the editor's page at the beginning of magazines
Oh my
to
gosh,
read
you're so
everything.
you. I love it. That's
What are you
funny.
reading, Anna?
Well, right now I am going back and reading um, novels by Donald Westlake, who is this very funny kind of mystery writer. And I'm reading the Dortmeyer novels, which are about a gang of aging thieves who keep trying to pull off heists where they go through all kinds of extremes to get a big haul, and then they always end up getting nothing for all their trouble, and everything always goes wrong. But they have these ingenious schemes to make a ton of money and always fail.
That sounds funny. What's the author's name again? Donald what?
Westlake.
Donald Westlake. Okay.
Yeah, it's just funny slapstick comedy basically, but I'm just enjoying the lightness of it all.
That's awesome.
Sometimes you got to have that.
Yes. Okay. Well, let's get into the meat of the episode. We're talking about writing from your body. Anna has been, well, Anna is a dear friend of mine and kind of my West Coast mother. So I've known Anna for many, 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 many years. And I've taken courses from her before, classes and workshops around this technique that she'll be talking about. But let me just read her bio. Anna Willman has been a certified focusing trainer since 1982. She has a master's degree in international studies from Claremont Graduate School and a master's in comparative politics from Columbia University. She was a Fulbright scholar in Zagreb, Yugoslavia in 1971 and 1972. She retired in 2008 after 14 years as director of the Confidence Clinic, a focusing-oriented community wellness program for women. Since retirement, she's written extensively about the program's history, its philosophy and practice, and its outcomes. She's also written and published 6 novels and a humorous short story about disappointed expectations. Welcome to the podcast, Anna.
Okay, thank you.
I love that. A humorous short story about disappointment. I love it. Love it. Sounds like all the music.
It's called Virgins in Paradise, and it's about what happens when a young terrorist who's exploded himself and a bunch of people arrives in paradise, expecting to be surrounded by dark-eyed virgins.
I was going to say it sounded like all the music I listened to in high school, but now it doesn't sound anything like so I may just have to read it.
You can find all her books on Amazon. Are they all Kindle Unlimited?
Everything is Kindle. 2 books are you can get in print, but the others are all Kindle.
All ebooks. Okay. And something else that's not in her bio that I really love about Anna is that she decided on her 70th birthday that she was going to walk across the United States. And I accompanied her on some of that. What do you say, the pandemic stopped you mostly?
Yes. Well, there were a number of things that made me pause, but I covered over 500 miles before I finally had to stop when the pandemic arrived.
Yeah.
I did have to take 1 year off to get my knees replaced because I had arthritis when I started, and eventually I had to take care of that. And then I developed Graves' disease and basically went blind for most of a year, better part of a year. And since the next stretch of road was called Rattlesnake Creek Road, I didn't feel like I wanted to try walking that when I couldn't tell the difference between a human and a mailbox. It felt like I wouldn't notice a rattlesnake on the path ahead of me. So I had to take a year off for that as well. And then I was ready to go back, and I was all geared up for it, and the pandemic hit. I usually would start walking in late March or early April. And of course, that's about the time the pandemic arrived.
Yeah.
Right.
All right. Well, how do you, first of all, Anna, I wanted to have you tell everyone like what focusing means, what the definition of it is, like maybe even how I got started. Because I mean, when I hear the word focus, like I use focus all the time because that's what I have to focus on what I'm doing and
And you
picking
mean
one thing and
focus,
focusing.
you mean concentrate on, or,
Direct my attention
narrow
to.
your vision. Yeah. Well, direct your attention to is a part of focusing. Focusing is hard to define. I usually prefer to show it to people.
Mm-hmm.
But basically, the idea is that our bodies hold all of our lives' experiences. We may not have access to some of those experiences, but it's there in your body, in the very cells of your body. And it's interesting that you were talking about meditation, because the first steps of focusing are very much like focusing, of bringing your attention into your body, noticing your breathing, really letting your body relax and really letting yourself be in the moment and feel your existence in the moment. Meditation, as I understand, and I've only done very little of that, is then you're supposed to let the thoughts just go away, and just, or your feelings go away, and let go of everything. With focusing, what you do once you've got that, you sort of create an inner space where you can notice what in you needs attention right now.
Okay.
And then you sit with that and listen to it and garner wisdom from it.
Mm.
And if the focusing session goes really well, you have something that's called a shift, because nothing inside you holds still.
Mm.
Even the things you're carrying from the past, you're carrying them now in a totally different way than you carried them when they were happening to you, or even shortly after them, or even yesterday. Your perspective, we were talking about seeing the world through new eyes. Your perspective shifts in the light of new experiences, so that I'm not so much interested in reliving old traumas. I'm interested in noticing how I'm carrying them today.
Noticing how you're carrying your trauma, or how you're carrying your experiences, or what?
Carrying my experience of that trauma forward.
Okay.
And so for example, something might happen that might give me insight into the person who traumatized me, even.
Mm-hmm.
And all of a sudden, I'm seeing that trauma as an outcome of something that happened long before I was even born, instead of just this most immediate, terrifying thing that had happened to me.
Mm-hmm.
There could be many ways that could change. There could also be, I could pay attention and discover anger I've been carrying all along that I never noticed I was carrying about it, which is another part of the healing process. But it's always healing. Focusing is always healing, and usually it feels good. The shift that happens is like, well, one of my favorite examples is, have you ever left your house and had this funny feeling that you forgot something? And you're
Every
driving
day.
to work and you have this, what did I forget? Did I leave the stove on? Did I turn off the water in the bathroom? What did I do?
Mm-hmm.
And you keep trying to think, and thinking doesn't get you there. But at some point in the day, something happens and oh, that's what it is. And you have this big sigh of relief. Oh, okay, that's what it is. I forgot. Now you're already at work and you forgot it. And maybe it was everybody was going to bring their baby picture and put it on the bulletin board that day or something. Who knows?
Mm-hmm.
You don't have the picture. You haven't changed anything, but the way you feel about it has changed, because now you know what it is. It's not all those other horrible things it might be. It's that. Or maybe it was you left the stove on or something, and at least then you can call a neighbor who has your key to go in and turn off the stove.
Mm-hmm.
There's often a step that follows from that sigh, or at least there's a knowing, a
Mm-hmm.
clarity. So that's a focusing experience everyone has every day.
Mm-hmm.
But you don't have to wait for it to happen spontaneously that way. You can have something going on in your life that you're doing something, you don't know why you're doing it. You are, or you're feeling like you have a stomach ache and you don't know why, and it doesn't seem to be physical, but you're feeling it in your body because you feel all of your experiences in your life in your body. You feel your emotions in your body. When you feel hurt emotionally, you feel pain in your body, physical pain in your body. When you're angry, you feel that in your body, you carry it. And so when you stop and look at these things, you always see things are much more complex than you originally thought it. If you're sitting with your anger, you usually realize there's something underneath the anger that triggered it. You know, your feelings were hurt, or you felt abandoned and alone, or you felt like um, you didn't exist. Something is under that anger. So focusing is a way to heal. It's also a way to understand yourself better. And writing from your body uses that technique to understand your characters better, because your characters also, as they become more and more real, they're carrying their life experiences in their bodies as well. And they may not be conscious of it. They may be totally unaware of it. They just may feel they're holding their shoulders tight. Or they may not even notice that, but just feel the pain in their shoulders, and not know why their shoulders hurting them, but they've been clenching it for 20 years because of something that happened to them 20 years ago or something. What I'd like to do is an exercise. I'm not sure how much time we have right now.
It kind of depends on you. We have about a half an
sure.
hour, I guess, 30 minutes, I would
Okay.
say.
So I would like to do an exercise, and Erick, you have volunteered for this.
At my request.
I'm going to turn my hat backwards just so I'm ready for what's coming.
So I would like
I have volunteered. I am willing.
Okay. I'd like you to select a character that you're that you're not quite certain about, or there's a problem and you don't even maybe know quite what it is.
Okay.
Maybe the character won't do what you want it to do. And if the listeners want to go along with us, you can pick a character too.
And we should say, actually, I'm sorry to interrupt you, but if you are listening and you want to follow along with this exercise, maybe you can pause after each prompt from Anna so that you can do this yourself and then hear what Erick has to say.
So this is a problematic character. Now, I was thinking about this after I volunteered as I was going through the stages of regret that I'm going to put myself out here. So when you say problematic, let's just for the audience's sake, like, does that mean it's a character that I can't figure out necessarily, or is it, can it be a character that is, I guess, complicated enough that I want to understand them better? Does it have to be problematic, I guess, is my question.
It doesn't have to be problematic. It could be just that you can't figure out why he's doing what he's doing. Or maybe you need him to do something for your plot, but he seems reluctant to do it. Or maybe there's just a feeling of discomfort you have every time you're writing about this character because you don't really quite understand him yet.
Okay. I'm juggling. If anybody's, that silence is me juggling. Like, do I use my main character because there's a lot about him I want to know?
It could be a main character. It could be any character.
All right, I'm gonna go. Okay, I got it.
This is true of all your characters, and it depends on how much you want to develop a character, how much time you might spend doing this with the character.
Okay.
But for the first thing now, I'd like to ask you to just sort of slow down for a moment and let yourself just relax. Maybe sort of feel the gentle tug of gravity pulling you downward, and feel your chair supporting you beneath you. Feel your feet, what they're resting on, supporting them, what's supporting your hands. Just become very aware of your body just in this moment in time, your posture. Feel the physical weight of it sinking into the support of your chair. Notice the rhythm of your breathing. Don't change it necessarily, just notice the rhythm. Cool air coming in, bringing oxygen and life. Air leaving when you exhale, warmed by your body. Exchanging gases with the atmosphere. Just sort of notice this moment. Now, this is you and you caring. And if you were focusing, this is where you would start. But now I want you to bring your character into your body and see if you can sense, maybe put the character in a particular situation where you notice this discomfort. And just see what the character's feeling in his body. We're going very fast here, so you may want to stop from time to time. But see if you can, from your body, feel your character's body. Just sort of open up to that character. He is, after all, your creation and therefore part of you. So really sense what he's feeling, or she. You may notice whether this is the kind of person who notices what they're feeling or whether they're blocked off from it. That doesn't mean they're not feeling it or that it doesn't affect what they do, but they may be totally unaware of what you are now aware of, which is where it's tight in their body, where it's loose. In this particular situation, what does it mean to them in their body? How are they holding that experience? And is it a familiar experience for them or a new one? Is this making sense for you with your character, Erick? Okay.
Definitely.
Okay. So try to sense really deeply, sit with that experience. And how is your character physically feeling it, and where in his body? Is it in his shoulders, in his belly, in his lower gut, in his chest? Is it full of energy, or is it sort of a lethargic feeling? Sort of see if you can find words that describe it. Does it have a color? Is it soft or hard, loose or tight? When you have a strong sense of that, how does your character act from that? If it's painful, how do they get away from that pain or cover the pain or hide from the pain or acknowledge the pain? Do they rage? Do they whimper? Do they hide from it and just go quiet? Do they run away? What is their normal response? And is there anything about this current situation that makes that impossible? So they have to react newly or freshly in a familiar situation or a new situation? Are the feelings this person having something they have, do they always go around in a sort of state of minor rage, or is this something, a totally brand new feeling for them? Given the nature of your plot, you might pause at various points if you're doing this at home and write down the words that are coming to you. Pause at any place you need to and write as much as you can about what your character is feeling, whether it's newer and fresh or something old and familiar, or whether it's something old but they're seeing in a new light suddenly because of what's going on in the plot. And how aware are they of what they're experiencing? You want to show and not tell, so you don't want to end up writing, oh yeah, the character felt this and this and this and this. You want to find out how they act from that feeling. And then eventually, what will you write it all, everything down now, but eventually when you're writing it into your novel, you're more likely to write what they actually do. And if there is an awakening in them, an awareness, new awareness coming, you can find a way to show that through their actions, maybe through a conversation they have with somebody else, how they carry on the conversation as much as what they say. You may find when you're working on your novel that this messes with your plot a bit. You were just talking about having a fully plotted novel. You might reach a place where your character just won't. I think it works best to let the character do what they want to do instead of what you want to do. Because usually when I've done that, they end up getting where you want them to get anyway. They just take another route. I used to explain things to people, like to say there's more than one way to get from here to Fred Meyer's. So you want them to go visit a friend, and that's not what they feel like doing at all right at this moment. They need to be alone. So let them go walking and find themselves at Fred Meyer instead of going by their friend's house without even knowing that's where they were headed, or bump into her accidentally or something.
That's cool. I like that feeling of they get where you want them to be, regardless of how you've plotted it. I like that. That kind of gives me a little bit of like peace, and the strain of trying to fit the words into the plot, that you've already outlined, kind of goes away.
So this is basically the process. You sit with it. You sit with your character. You let your body feel your character's body. You write down everything that comes, even if it doesn't make sense. Then you sit some more. You can always say, what else? What more needs attention? What else is going on? Why is it if you can listen to your character with a combination of compassion and curiosity. You want to understand, and so you're curious, and you're not judging, because if you start judging your character, they'll clam up on you. So you're just saying, just what's actually happening in your body, and wonder what that is. What's making those shoulders so tight? What's making that stomach turning upside down? What's causing that need to keep twitching your toes, and maybe let your character get up. If there's energy in their hands, let them get up and move their arms up and down, and then sit with them again after they've done that. And you can do it for them. You can get up and be them for a moment and move around the room even. This is a way of really getting to understand your character and let your character be him or herself, which is a reflection of you. Everything you write to some degree is a reflection. I mean, one of my novels is about a sociopathic killer for hire. And believe me, that was really rough. But I did that with this person, and it felt horrible being her, really horrible being her. But I really understood her. And I will never, ever write about a sociopathic killer again because it was such an unpleasant experience being her. But but it made her real.
I read that book.
Yeah, it's funny. It's a funny book. It's really told from the point of view of her daughter, because her mother wants the daughter to go into the family business, and the daughter really wants to be a marine biologist.
What is the title again? I forget it. Loose
Loose
thread.
ends.
Loose ends.
Loose ends. Yeah, most of my novels have humor in them of some sort.
How was that for you, Erick?
You know, it's funny because you started with me settling into me and, with this awareness of my space. And so I was in that, like, I was fully relaxed. I could feel like where my feet were on the floor. But then as soon as you said get in the character, I was aware that I was on a camera, so I didn't look over my shoulder, but I immediately looked into the camera to look what was over my shoulder. Making sure the door was closed. There's a big open space over here. I became very aware that that space was very open. And also my curtains are sort of half blocking the window in front of me. I just became very aware of the blind spots in the space.
A lot of
Where,
fear, maybe.
yeah, and just, well, I have a character that deals with a lot of uncertainty about his past. And the story is a lot about his sort of search for, connecting the present to his past. And I think what's hard for me in writing this character and why I chose him is that, and I get this a lot from my writers group, is that I have a very limited range of physical responses for that character. Like when there's moments, he's either whatever he has in his hands, he sips his coffee or flicks the beer tab or something. He does something sort of with the things in his space, or he sighs. And it's one of the responses I get all the time is, you got to give him more things to do that reflect what he's feeling. And so I was just sitting here thinking, like, this character is always sort of looking over his shoulder. It's what he's literally doing and figuratively doing in the series. So, yeah, I wasn't really aware. I don't know. I guess I wasn't really aware of what he was physically, what that physically feels like, is to be, in search of and uncertain. Not that I have all this like clarity on every bit of my past, but I don't have like a big shadow in my past. So, but this character does. So it immediately put me in the space of looking over my shoulders. And my wife is home and she's doing things, and I was trying to figure out where she was. I can't hear her. Most of the time I can't hear her in this house. I immediately thought, is she home from dropping Elijah off at school? I sort of just became more spatially aware than I ever really am.
That's
So that's
interesting.
really an important clue about this character that you can take some time to follow up, because we've done
Right.
this very quickly. And this will deepen the character and improve your writing, and it'll make your plots go more smoothly, and make your characters interact with each other even in a more consistent, character-driven way.
Right. I think too, like I don't know, I will have to carry this around a little bit longer than just this time, because I also became very aware of how, I've chose this character. I started writing this character because there's elements of him that I relate to, and so but there's also things about him that I like finding out. I like to find out the things that are different, where we're different. That's what I as a writer enjoy finding with him. And I think this is part of that. Like, what does it feel like to be that, that hyper aware, that overly, I don't know. It was very uncomfortable to feel like I needed to know all those things so quickly. So
It was
Sounds
uncomfortable to feel them quickly. Is that what you said?
just to have that feeling of like I was comfortable. I was sitting here comfortably, like the exercise, led me to. I felt completely at ease, but then suddenly was not comfortable, and I had to do
Mhm.
this, like all these check downs throughout the room, and then the house. And I think if I let it go even longer, I would have, wondered what's Elijah doing at school right now, or like I started. Melville is always be aware of trying to become more aware of his surroundings. I didn't realize how much anxiety was behind that.
Mm.
And he might
So
have felt in the scene, he might at some point feel compelled to get up and just glance out the window and twitch the curtains a little bit, or I don't know, you know better than I do how
right,
he would deal. He wouldn't want people to know he was that way, but he would be that way. So we'd have to find subtle ways of checking out his,
right,
perhaps, that's my stuff, not yours, but
right.
Or
Well,
maybe,
one
I
of
mean,
the
I've
things,
read many books with Melville in them, so maybe he would be more of a person that would, in an effort to hide his anxiety from the people in the room, maybe he would develop some sort of like repetitive, not like a tick, but just something that he
right,
would do that would signify, oh, this person is anxious. Like you see on movies, like the camera
right,
angles go to like clenched fists or like a nose rub they always do when they're nervous or thinking or
right, right.
something, and I you're right, Melville doesn't have a lot of those.
Well, the newest manuscript, the last book clearly, there's been a clear, like, we're aware of you, we're coming for you kind of
Mm-hmm.
ending to that story. And so in writing this new one, I've had to, the first draft, this didn't find its way in. This is where some of those comments were coming from. I realized, like, now he's a character who is a sheriff. He's got to be a sheriff, and he's got to be a big brother, and he's got to be a boyfriend. But he also has to do those things knowing that he's not, like, a cop can kind of be an antagonist or a protagonist, but this is like he's maybe being chased. He doesn't feel like he's in such control anymore. Um, so I opened the scene, a newly rewritten scene with him watching, they're sitting in a restaurant, but he's watching somebody park the car and come in. And I realized, like, he's now watching the door. He's now watching the window. But this exercise made me realize, like, there's a lot more to it than that. It's, 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 I'm sure that as you develop that anxiety of being watched and followed, you're watching more than the door. You got to watch the
yeah.
And
windows
this
where
is
you
where
He,
step.
you
he,
can bring in a lot of internal dialogue, I imagine.
Right,
The things that you learn in your focusing exercise will be that internal dialogue that the character has, as
right,
well as, like Anna said, showing the behaviors of acting out the feelings in their body on the
right,
page.
right, right,
yeah, and that kind of hyper alertness that you're describing, um, you might even read up a little bit about what are some particular hyper alert um ac- actions that people who are hyper alert like that do.
Emotion Thesaurus by, I forget her name, but yeah, wouldn't you be able to look it up? Just
yeah,
Or
yeah. I've
maybe,
seen
for
that book.
example, a need to sit in a room in a certain place where you can see the entrances and exits, you know, um, not
Yeah,
have your back to the door, for example.
or
right,
something that would be more telling would be walking into a restaurant and seeing that there were no places to sit where he could see the door and the
right,
anxiety that that caused. I think that would be more telling than just,
Yeah, and maybe even deciding not to eat in that restaurant because of it.
mhm.
right,
I
right.
think there's only one restaurant in that town, though.
Uh-oh. Okay.
Well,
Well,
I haven't.
anyway,
We're getting
any,
takeout, honey. We're getting takeout.
so anyway, the thing is, you're Eric are the one to to figure out and know
Right,
this from what you felt in your body. Not, I mean, Val and I we can play around with ideas that may have nothing to do and not be appropriate for your character. But
right,
this way you can get to know all of your characters one at a time, and then also understand their relationships with each other. You can sit and imagine this character with another character that he doesn't always feel comfortable with, or one that he does feel comfortable with, and explore their relationships by sitting with each one of them and seeing what they're feeling.
So I have
Well,
a question. Oh, sorry, go
Oh,
ahead.
I was going to say, I feel like a great character comes from contrast, and just knowing a little bit more how what's going on in here, it gives me more things to contrast it with. Um, and part of the sort of, I don't know, what I like about him is he's a sheriff in his hometown, but he's discovering that his hometown is not what he thought it was. And so it's this increasing awareness and loss of trust that comes with his surroundings. It's part of the story. But again, like you saying, like that, yeah, he goes to the same places. I might have to develop a few more restaurants and things in town just to develop that, move that forward. But right, yeah, when you lose that sense of familiarity, then I don't know. It just, yeah, it's very opening. I'm going to be in this more than just this. So,
So Anna,
So
my
this is just
question.
one way that you can use this focusing skill. You can also use it to develop metaphors. If you feel like you want to make your descriptions more metaphoric, you can sit in your body with the scene and sense what your body feeling tells you about it, and then from
right.
that, anyway, there's a lot of different ways. I have different exercises. I think the character one is a good one to introduce people to it.
Right.
So do you do this character exercise while you are plotting your novel, or do you do it before each scene, or just when there's a problem, or?
Well, let me put it this way. I kind of cheat. I do my characters and I let them do what they want to do. And I usually start with one or two characters and a situation. And I have no idea what's happening. I don't start with a plot. I start with a character and a situation. And I follow it for a chapter or two. And then I start to get a sense of where it's going. And usually before long, I know how it ends. I still don't actually know the middle. And then sometimes I've tried doing the plotting thing like you just described, Erick. And it always ends up for me stilted and too planned. And as my characters get more real and more complex, it doesn't fit them anymore. And so I know where we're ending up, and I kind of let them figure out what happens next. And it does sometimes make my plots a little meandery, because I know you're supposed to keep building tension, tension, tension. They definitely have story arcs because they're character driven. But that's how I write. If you want to know more about focusing, one of my novels is about focusing. It's called Kaleidoscope. And it's one that's actually available in print. It's my favorite novel of the novels I've written. And it's about a person. It's about a person with DID, dissociative identity disorder, which is the current term for multiple personality. And the main protagonist is one of the alters in this person. And so a lot of it happens inside the person and in her interactions between the different parts inside. And part of it happens in the outside world where there's a lot of confusion and chaos caused by the fact of different personalities controlling the body and not necessarily knowing what the other one did when they were out. And their therapist is a focusing oriented therapist. And so they're using focusing. And what is interesting for me is that one of my first reviews of this book on Amazon.com was from a young woman in Australia who has DID and said nothing she had read had caught it as closely as my novel did. and she checked out focusing, and especially one version of focusing called whole body focusing that I had described, and started to heal. And she saw my characters in the process of healing. And this woman started going to a focusing therapist, and she had known focusing before, but the characters had made it too chaotic. But after reading my book, she found a way to make it work for her.
That's awesome.
Yeah, and
Your
she
books
wrote
changed
back even-
lives, Anna.
Yeah, it was really amazing. And she wrote a second review in which she sort of updated other people who wanted to know about her progress, you know.
That's
But
awesome.
and her partner read it and used once when she started to dissociate again. He said, "Wait a minute, remember in the book when?" And helped her not dissociate because he had also read the book.
That's awesome.
So that
Very
was
cool.
kind of cool. That's my favorite book. I have two kinds of books I write. Some sort of what you might call psychological suspense stories, which is the psychopathic killer, and this one I would put in that category. And the others are Regency romances. Every other book is a Regency romance, and I do the same thing with those characters as well, and try and put them into their historic. I sort of I get into my Jane Austen self.
Yeah. Georgette Hare. I will put a link in the show notes to your Amazon page so people can go and look at all of your books.
Well, thank you for this. This was,
Yeah.
like I said, a little caught off guard.
Surprise, Eric, you're doing an exercise today.
well, no, not on that, but like sometimes, I don't know. I think I can be aware that I can be aware sometimes that I'm trying to do something, and that takes a bit of the magic out of it. I'm sure a lot of people can relate to that, but that immediately worked, and I'm not accustomed to things like that immediately working. So, and I wish I was writing that character today, because I'm working through the early parts of that story, the newest story, and I have a lot of ideas, so I might have to steal some time later this afternoon
All right.
to do
That's
that.
exciting.
I also do a poetry writing class, writing from your body, writing poetry for non-poets, for people who don't normally write poems, but have a process by which they can come up with poetry, with a really pretty nice poem.
Cool.
And
do you do that class often? Is that something you want to plug? Is that a place where people can register, or?
I haven't done it for a while. I'm 81 years old. I'm sort of,
Go with the flow.
I'm sure. I'm trying to give more time for myself, but I was doing a writing class online on a weekly basis for a while, but it was kind of fun. But I stopped because it sort of petered out, for a while. But people have suggested I might start it up again. And if I do, it will be listed under webinars at focusinginternational.org.
Okay. I will put a link to that in the show notes as well.
That's for an organization called Focusing Initiatives International, which I'm the board of that organization. I'm the chair of the board on that organization, and it does focusing in community wellness, social. We train people who are working with people in communities that are under high stress, either because of war or disasters like Ebola and things like that.
Yeah, it's a great resource too, to go to the Focusing Initiatives International, and you can see all of the awesome, cool work they do around the world.
And the website is focusinginternational.org.
I'll put a link in the show notes. Yeah.
Yeah, and if you go under webinars, you'll see some of the stuff that I'm doing there. But right now it's less than it has been, because like I said, I retired officially in 2008, but I have been busier than even when I was working for the most part with focusing initiatives. And now I'm trying to really retire because I have a novel that is almost done. And since I retired, instead of getting more writing done, I've been writing. You asked me if I had a website earlier, and I guess I could say yes, focusinginitiatives.org. I wrote a whole lot of that website.
All right.
But
Well,
it's been
thanks.
doing that instead of my own writing.
Well, here's to finishing that novel. And thanks so much for coming on here and teaching us how to do this exercise with our characters and with ourselves too. And yeah, it's been a pleasure. Thank you so much for joining us.
Well, thank
Yeah,
you for
thank you very
asking
much.
me.
All right. Well, next week we will be talking about using your local library as an author resource. We talk about all these books that Erick gets at the library, and and he found that it was being underutilized. So he's got some cool ideas. So we'll talk about that next week. And yeah, happy writing. Bye for now.
See you then.